All right, so this is Todd Atkins and Miguel Iterati, and we're back with another episode of the MMA Conspiracy Hour. And this time we are going to do a little bit more conspiracy, I would say. And
Hmm.
before we start, I want to thank our sponsors, Live to Fight Design, which you can find them on Instagram at Live to Fight Design, and they make fight banners and gym banners. And if you use my promo code Todd Atkins, you can get $20 off your order. And I have a new sponsor, which I'll be doing a promotion for later in the episode, Bet Stamp, and I'll tell you some more about them later in the episode. I want to thank them; they're our newer sponsor. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the news that it came out, which Dana White has denied, but it was an interesting to me and Miguel, and that was that TKO, not the UFC, but TKO Endeavor, was looking to maybe purchase Top Rank from Bob Arum. And as I said before, Dana White had already denied this, but me and Miguel think there may be in a conspiracy or a theoretical, there might be some reasons why it could be to Dana's benefit to deny that they were going to do this. So I wanted to let Miguel kind of start out and give his kind of opening thoughts on that.
Well, I think it's definitely plausible. We've been theorizing that, the union with the WWE, which is now more than a year old, right? This union with Endeavor and the WWE was only the first component, and that another component would be to purchase a boxing organization. And the bottom line is that, with the Ali Act firmly in place in boxing, there be some stress and some learning curve for them to operate, and that may have been what's been holding things back. But Dana flirted with Anthony Joshua when he was at his heyday, and talked about $1 billion payout to a fighter kind of thing, and stuff like that. And it's laughable to me. It's like, Dana comes from boxing. It's like Dana comes from boxing, like, like I come from, 100-meter racing. You know what I mean? He's not a person from boxing, but he has some knowledge of how to put a combination together, and has thought about it. And that flirtation has been a long time, and he backed off because things like the Ali Act and not being able to do business. But I don't think that he's a guy that just backs off. You know what I mean? It's like, I think he always did that with the intent of, like, finding a niche and finding a way to get in there. And I think doing it this way is the one that makes the most sense, because this is absolutely at the highest level. Top Rank, with speculated Matchroom, and Matchroom boxing might have, um maybe their current roster is maybe the slickest, especially in terms of the heavyweights and things. Yeah, they're not Tyson Fury, but I'm sure that stuff could get worked out, and the British heavyweight scene is pretty robust. But I think Top Rank is the granddaddy of them all. I mean, Top Rank is, in terms of a library, is Muhammad Ali's fights, is the whole Four Kings, Roberto Duran, Thomas Hearns, Marvin Hagler, and Sugar Ray. All that's in Top Rank's wheelhouse. They own the rights to that. So I think this would make sense from that perspective, in that you look for peers in boxing. Who's at the top of the heap? It's Top Rank. And the other part of it is Top Rank has a close to 90-year-old chief executive, still pretty spry for a 90-year-old kind of thing. But Top Rank, what they don't have on a visible radar, at least as far as my radar is concerned, is that, Hunter Campbell, that next generation, who's going to lead this thing next? You know what I mean? So it's like, when Bob goes, is there going to be a drop off? Is there going to be some type of, ceasing of operations, and it becomes a library kind of thing? And with Bob's situation, I think that Bob Arum might be looking for the right way for this to continue. And I don't know that he's bred an heir there that way, somebody to keep it going kind of thing. So there's a lot of reasons it makes sense. On top of that, we've talked about at the end of the day, with a boxing organization, a WWE organization, pro wrestling, and the UFC. Now you're talking about a different type of combat sports company kind of thing where, maybe they could use that size and depth to somehow avoid the lawsuit that's coming their way with with being an antitrust lawsuit and being a lawsuit where they're accused of being a monopoly kind of thing. Where they say, no, we're not a monopoly, but we are just so much bigger and so much, the PFL is, they let their guy box and then had nothing to do with it. Now we are boxing with Top Rank as well. So I think it gives them almost a possibility of an argument of saying that their company is something beyond a monopoly, that it's just too big, but they're not a monopoly. And so, yeah, I don't believe Dana for a second.
Now, I know Bob Macy had mentioned that he thinks the reason the UFC didn't get into boxing is because they couldn't monopolize it. Now, do you think because of the Ali Act they couldn't monopolize it? Now, do you think that's something that they would change their stance on as far as?
Well, the Ali Act is going to force them to behave a certain way, but as far as I know, boxing seems to be headed, what does the Ali Act mean in Saudi Arabia? Precisely zero. What does the Ali Act actually mean in England? So I think boxing is definitely a more international sport right now, less reliant on the U.S. market, and there may be ways around working some of that, and that's what makes it interesting. The other part of it is they don't need to own every single boxer or every single boxing company, but with the ability to say, like, for example, let's say they, I don't know, John Jones was to box, or they were to start to create that type of mixed situation. They're going to be looking at making bigger and show type fights that are not there now. And that's where their argument can come in. So and then I think with Top Rank, Bob's got a pretty profitable business there. So you just let it continue, run it as you can, and then pick and choose your spots to make something huge. I think that's what its best benefit for them would be. And I think the Aliyah becomes marginalized because boxing's not as big in the United States as it should be.
So you just mentioned something interesting. They could, have their own boxing entity and then maybe drag some UFC guys into it when they feel it's warranted.
Yep.
That would be interesting because now
Yep.
they could head off some of that Francis Ngannou type stuff that caused them a problem there.
Right, and actually compete with that. That's shown itself to be a market that if you make the right fight, that it can be extremely lucrative and extremely eye-catching in terms of, people watching it and stuff. So you're in a situation there where I think that's what they would be looking to create. And I think that they would have to take the boxing aspect of it and just let it run itself. Whatever Top Rank does on a weekly, monthly basis, with shows and stuff like that, go ahead and do it. Both boxing and UFC, it's a slightly different subject, but we've talked a little bit about it too, is, you've heard it for 10 years now, since Floyd left the sport, really, that pay-per-view is dead. Well, pay-per-view has been hard to kill, like officially kill. maybe declining, and there's so many other ways to see the fights now, including, illegally streaming and things like that. But it's so much more accessible now. They're going to have to figure out some kind of way to get off the pay-per-view model. And I think, boxing, the boxing component and the UFC together, both of those would be something that if they hit on the right formula, then the money's exponentially bigger. So I think that's why it makes sense for Endeavor as well. They're still looking. Pay-per-view's dead is something that we've heard. How long have we heard it, Todd? 10 years, at least a decade.
Right.
But it hasn't really died yet. And, with the zone and some, comings and goings like that, the zone's still out there, but they're not the force they were when they signed Canelo to, $300 million contracts and that sort of stuff. They're still looking for the way to replace that. And, the bottom line is that's where the WWE comes in, is the WWE had the tightest network of their own stuff to present their own pay-per-views and their own things like that. They've been the strongest distributor of their material out of all three of the sports. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go. But I think what it is with Top Rank, this company would be adding an A++ asset.
Yeah, and I mean the flexibility it would give them, like you have mentioned, is something that I don't think is being talked about much.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. It presents them because, like I said, you've got Joshua there. Let's say Joshua's with Matchroom, but Top Rank is Tyson Fury. Bob Aramon's a piece of Tyson, and with Tyson, maybe having a. Here's the interesting part: if this deal goes down, guess what? Any talk of a Fury Ngannou rematch, now Dana's involved. How's Ngannou going to feel about that? He can't look back and be at the PFL and be like, all right, we got the lawyers. Let's back. The PFL has been a non-factor in any of this. They're trying to figure out what they're doing with the fight stuff on the MMA side, and Dana's playing three-dimensional chess on them again. If they wanted to do a rematch, Dana's now involved if they own Top Rank. And period. That's it. And we talk about Dana. His presentation over the years has changed, from a gung ho, charge forward kind of no nonsense, F the world kind of guy, to now kind of more like a rich guy that seems a little jaded at times, right? But how do you get his attention? Hey, let's figure out how to work this Top Rank stuff in there at the highest level. Do you do a mixed card of UFC and Top Rank, or a weekend of fighting with the UFC, Top Rank, and WWE events all in Saudi Arabia? And grab as much money as you can from those people, kind of thing. It's like nobody can even conceive of that before. And now, Dana's on the cusp of doing that if that's what he wants.
I know you're just waiting to say something about the PFL if this happens,
When was the last time we taped? It's been a couple of weeks. We taped a couple of weeks ago, and since then the PFL hasn't even done a press release. Nothing. And so nothing has changed on that book. They're not impressive. They're not in the neighborhood. And when Dana has to just deny the possibility that he's buying the premier boxing library in the world, when you talk about Top Rank, like I mentioned, you're talking about going back to the 60s and 70s, some of the elite boxing matches that resonate for everybody around the world. That's not a joke. That's real serious business. Meanwhile, the PFL is bulking up their library with those awesome Thanksgiving Day tournaments they finished, and they've done nothing since. So it's not even, crapping on the PFL. It's not even in the same ballpark as this. Even if Dana and Top Rank, this thing doesn't happen, just and I think it will. I think this will be one of those things where they're denying it for whatever reasons they think they deny. They can deny it. Maybe part of it is arrogance. Where it's like, yeah, we do what we want. But this is big. This is big in terms of where the doors it opens for what Dana wants. Dana wants to do shows at the Sphere. Dana wants to do, how do you premiere at the Sphere with just you can't put together the biggest UFC card of all time anymore, because,
Right.
you don't have a Brock Lesnar. You don't have a guy like that. You don't have, you could put together maybe 10, 12 outstanding championship top level fights and call it the biggest card ever. But the people still may not show up, not like they did in the past and stuff. So they've topped off in terms of, the biggest MMA card ever. But how do you improve on that? The biggest MMA card ever, with the next night WWE blurring the lines and maybe putting Ronda Rousey in a WrestleMania style main event over the guys. And then you top it off with a Fury and Ngannou rematch. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The PFL could announce another series of $1 million, tournaments. It's not even remotely in the ball. They can't. They can't do anything to stop that behemoth. The only thing that can really stop it is like we said, the courts, and that's still a few years away.
Hold that thought, because I want to share something about BetStamp before we continue the episode here. So I'm just going to read something here. Sports betting has rapidly risen in popularity, and I want to connect you all with an opportunity to get started or get ahead. Having multiple sportsbooks accounts is the most simple way to maximize your profits, and there has never been a better time to sign up. When you visit my page, which is signupexpert.com/TAS, like Todd Atkins Show, signupexpert.com/TAS, you'll be connected to all the sports books in your region, along with a review of each platform and the unique benefits. All these sports books have valuable sign-up offers for new users, and when you register through my link, you will automatically receive top offer at each one. When you use multiple sports books, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful sports betting. If you want to take advantage of these benefits and support our brand, please consider signing up for your next sports book at signupexpert.com/TAS. And I just want to see if I can share my screen right quick to see if I can show you this. I'm going to try to do this in just a moment. Let's see here. I can show you some of this here. Share. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the website here that I'll just kind of enlarge. So it has all the links here that you can use. And you would just go down here and you can click your state, or your location for that matter, country. And you can just sign up for whatever sports books you want to use. And you can just sign up through my website here and choose whatever sports books you want to use to make your bets. And yeah, we appreciate you supporting our episode. And this is through BetStamp, who's our newest sponsor. And as always, we appreciate your support. And BetStamp came to me. They wanted to support MMA. So for people that are into MMA, BetStamp supporting, like grassroots creators in MMA, to me is real impressive, because it's not just they're trying to support just the bigger creators, but a lot of the grassroots creators that are kind of the I would say, the backbone of the sport, especially someone like me who has been around from the beginning, and Miguel as well. So that's our newest
Yeah,
sponsor, Bet Stamp, and check out signupexpert.com/TAS.
yeah, definitely hats off to them, in terms of noticing the work we're doing. It's not major millions of visitors and things like that, but I do think that it's quality work, and it's work from the heart. So, um, if that's what they recognize, then there's something good about what they're doing. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys. And even if we don't get anyone signed up, Todd's up to 2 sponsors. That's big time stuff, Todd.
No, we'll get people signed up. Now, I wanted to, you're holding that. I asked you to hold that thought because I wanted to mention something. You were talking about how UFC can they can put on these different events now, and it would make it hard for anyone to compete with them. So it would almost be like, in essence, like PFL and Le1. There would be no way that there's nothing that they could do they couldn't go out and buy another boxing entity that could, unless they could somehow buy Matchroom, which I doubt they could. It would almost be
the,
a losing battle at that point.
the thing about Matchroom is that Matchroom's already on their second generation leader. And Eddie Hearn doesn't look like he's running out of energy. Like, Bob's 90. So Eddie Hearn's still got some time, and who knows what Eddie Hearn the third, how he's grooming and what he's setting up there. And the reason I mention that is because, I think Eddie Hearn and wants to be top rank, or would like to be considered on that same level. So then why the hell would you even consider selling to the PFL at this point? What has the PFL done to make him think I'm leaving this in good hands?
Right.
Let me walk away with my $1 billion and go do other things. He's a lifer in boxing, so he's there to stay. Maybe the PFL could hire him, and like they Endeavor did with Dana, and keep him along. But again, why would you do that with what the PFL's current, resume and status is? So it's not conceivable. And you know, one is diversified with their, MMA, grappling, and Muay Thai, and certain other rules that they're willing to use in their shows and stuff like that. But they've been notoriously not delving into Marquita Queensberry rules, so they would be in a completely different, they know nothing about boxing. With Matt Hume there, it's like, okay, on a martial arts level, I'm sure Matt could come along pretty quick in terms of, possibly making decent announcing and things like that for the shows and things like that. But to actually groom yet another roster of grappler, with the grapplers, with the Muay Thai, now you're going to be maintaining boxers, and boxing is, boxing is still sitting there. There are, more than a dozen weight classes. There's probably, the UFC talks about how they own the top 15 guys in every weight class. It's like, well, in boxing, that doesn't happen, right? But guess what? There's a top 15 and there's a top 50 of guys that are sitting around being like, where do we box? What are we doing next? And one doesn't show me the capacity to go ahead, and the UFC does, because all they have to do is keep running Top Rank the way they do, monthly shows, weekly shows, whatever it is, up it, if they do monthly now, they get up it to weekly. If they say they're going to do it, I believe that they would be able to do it. Structurally, they've been able to already, right? But one doesn't have that capacity. So yeah, and one is, to add another sport to I think they already kind of selected. So I think boxing would be misplaced. And again, therefore, if you're Eddie Hearn, or even Frank Warren, or DeBella, or any of the other libraries that are out there in boxing, promoters and things, why would you settle for a second class operation? And that's the question. You won't. So this is something only the UFC could do. And like I said, I think Dana's not being forthcoming. I think whatever fun he's having. But I think in the end of the days, that's very plausible that this is going to go down.
Right, and that's something I'm going to let you touch on a little bit more in a moment. But one other thing that I wanted to touch on about you had mentioned, the UFC obviously they're not dumb. They've been at this a very long time, and most people feel like, and Dana mentioned this on the Full Sim podcast, the Note Boys, whatever you want to call it, that nobody's really selling pay-per-views. And I think if he had made that statement, he was including himself in that statement, even though he didn't say that. I think that's what he meant. And I'm sure they're sitting around over there saying, okay, how do we solve this problem? We don't have new people on the roster. We are where we're at. Have we peaked? Can we get new people? Or do we need to buy this boxing entity? And this, in a way, like you're saying, if it worked, this could help solve their problem because it opens a new door. Now they can bring on boxing. They can mix some fights if they need to. Like you said, this could solve their problem in a major way.
We've mentioned, pay-per-view's been dead for 10 years is what the saying was. When Floyd left, it was like pay-per-view died and that's it. But it's still there and it's still, making people money and things like that. When the UFC started to do shows that were not on pay-per-view, you saw their top end of the roster be like, hey, well, I'll wait for the pay-per-view so I get my percentage. Because the contracts don't allow for another way for them to make bigger money. You know, um, you got an inkling of that when Cerrone fought McGregor, and Cerrone was like, "Yeah, I got a contract. It's not like I'm making billions more, And that probably was a pay-per-view fight, but Cerrone, attracted a certain amount of pay-per-view buys already, so he was, that money may have jumped from 3 million to 6 million. And yeah, that's enough to move the radar and stuff. But Cerrone, I don't know, I don't know what the numbers are, but Cerrone didn't sound exactly like this is the greatest thing in the world for me monetarily. It's like this. He thought it was still business as usual. Much more recent case, you've got Aljamain Sterling in the news just this week, I think, where he said, I kind of got ramrodded and rushed into a fight with Sean O'Malley, being told that this guy's, the biggest sell since sliced bread. And I ain't impressed with the pay-per-view numbers, If I had known this is what I was going to make, I probably would have waited and just, taken some time off and things like I was planning to do. But I figured, hey, I'm going to double up, maybe make a lot of money all at once and things like that. I can't pass that up. And the money has not been what he expected either. So pay-per-view is not the, especially because the answer has been, pay-per-view is like, all right, $64.95, and then the next week it's like $79.99. It's like, oh man, it keeps going up. It keeps going up. That's not the answer either. They need a way to get fights in front of more eyes and more people. And like I said, the WWE and even Fight Pass and things like that, some type of ultra powerful network is probably the key. And what this allows them to do, they probably can do a 24-hour MMA network. The WWE maybe could do a 24-hour, with classic shows and things like that. But add boxing to it in a library as profound as Top Ranks. And now you're getting to the fact that you could have a channel that shows 3 different sports on a worldwide distribution level and offers enough variety and material and things like that that would remain interesting, and not just be like, all right, I'm going to watch, with MMA, it might get to the level where they might have to, dust off that old hook and shoot library that they bought, and show some of the fights on there, because what are you going to show? And instead of repeat, what are you going to do? Repeat Jones Gustafson every 3 weeks? So that's the danger of this is not the danger or the upside of this is that I think an all fight distribution network where you put an app on your phone, you pay $10 a month, $15 a month, $20 a month, but you have access to everything. All the new events, all the old events, all the library. Hey, I want to watch Rumble in the Jungle. Go ahead and sue the crap out of YouTube so that they scrub all that stuff over there, and those types of outlets where you can see some of that stuff now and make it exclusive. The PFL will be bringing us PFL Africa in 2027. That's their plan. So it's like I think that's what makes this a real component to look at is that how are you going to get off of the pay-per-view model of going through the pay-per-view markets and things like that is having a distribution network that you own and control, and that it doesn't become DAZN where it's like all of a sudden they just lack for material on a week in week out basis, day in day out. The UFC is getting close, Endeavor's getting close now to a point where I don't know how far back the WWE library goes, but that could conceivably go back to the 50s, and all you need is to just keep people there. So I think that's what makes it real strong is that you're now looking at something where the idea of 24/7 fights, it's been out there. Other companies have said they're going to do it. Easier said than done. And this makes it possible.
Now, the other thing I was going to let you talk about that we had just mentioned, why it would benefit the UFC not to tell the truth about this. Now, before we start, someone had reached out to me and said, "Oh, well, it wouldn't benefit Dana White to lie about this." And what I had brought up to you was this story about Mark Cuban and Clay Travis, who he's a pretty entertaining sports guy, and Mark Cuban had been going at him for probably the last 6 months to a year about how healthy the NBA was and how it's never been better and the ratings have never been better. And now he's selling the Dallas Mavericks all of a sudden for about $5 million less than what the Phoenix Suns got. And, Clay Travis is now saying, you see, Mark Cuban's been lying the entire time. We all knew the NBA's ratings were terrible. They were worse than they've been. And they've been going down for a long time. And Mark Cuban was lying. And now he's shown that because he's selling the Mavericks and he's selling them for a lot less than the most recent team that sold, which is the Phoenix Suns. So I wanted to kind of you to compare that to this, why it would benefit Dana White to not tell the truth about this.
What benefit did the PFL see from not owning up to buying Bellator for 6 months and denying it and things like that? You can't, until it's done, you can't look like you want to do it too desperately, or else it could affect the price in some way, shape, or form. So what Dana says and does in this case is irrelevant. But if he came out and said, yeah, if we get them, then we're a lot closer to a 24/7 all combat all the time type of distribution that nobody else can even come close to, then Bob might say, we got $1 billion deal here. Why not make it 1.2 billion? Right. You know what I mean? It's like, and so these are negotiations that are going on, and some of and it seems to me too that with Endeavor involved since the WWE merger, that this is a no-brainer. Like, this didn't just pop up last weekend. This has been ongoing for a long time, and not a lot of people are talking about it. So now here's a news blurb that went on. Of course you deny it, because things are going on behind the scenes. Like I said, the negotiation, the money going around there is big money, and nobody wants to part with more money or less money or what the right number is and this and the other thing. And this is why very sometimes these deals don't go down, because that extra 0.2 million, 0.2 billion or whatever becomes a showstopper. And I whereas Dana, 10 years ago with the UFC was the only voice that mattered with the UFC. Now, especially with the WWE, they're they don't want to be the one to fuck this deal up either, because there are a lot of players. So I think it's natural that he would deny that it's going on and stuff like that. But I think you see a glint in his eye. And, we've talked about jaded Dana for a couple of years now, where, things aren't floating his boat anymore. But you could really see where, um, he might be voting. He doesn't want to mess this up. That's how I look at this. He doesn't want to mess this up, because it is actually, Dana was always the biggest bull in the china shop, but he's not anymore. He's got other bulls he's got to make sure are happy there. And until this deal is signed, I think once it's signed, then maybe we'll see Dana. Dana, between Bob Arum, Vince McMahon, and Dana. Dana's the freshest, youngest, most energetic executive they've got left, regardless of how much steroids McMahon does and, bombast and pro wrestling yelling he does. He's getting close to 80 as well.
Right.
So, and he's got his family, Stephanie and I forget what his son's name is right off the top of my head, but
Shane.
Shane, there you go. He's done a better job of grooming them to take over than Bob Arum has anybody. So yeah, they're going to want to make sure. Dana always felt like he never had peers. Now he has peers, people that he can't not respect. Even if he insults a lawyer here and there in the press conferences and things and says they're stupid for, every WWE fan is going to be a UFC fan and stuff like that. This is not the same it's my way or the highway Dana that we saw at the throughout his MMA run. This is a different ball game, and I present to you that the idea behind that is the amount of money and the amount of the players that are here are all bringing something to the table that's big enough that, hey, he's got to clean up his act a little bit.
Yeah. Plus, I think people who don't think that this is possible, like if they aren't selling as much pay-per-views, the UFC can't just say, well, to heck with it. We'll just keep going as we're doing and hopefully it'll fix itself. They have to look at a way to fix the problem. This is not like small time PFL or one like we were talking about before. This is a big entity that, they can't just let it fail. They got to fix the problem.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, the formulaic way that the UFC has turned, it doesn't really lend itself to creating crossover stars anymore.
Right.
They still seem to be relying on guys they built 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There hasn't been, they've tried with some new guys and this, that, and the other thing, and they're able, a guy like Sean O'Malley is making more money now than he ever dreamed he was going to make. But, uh, he's topping off too. Again, we're still not at the level in any of these sports where you take an NBA player like a guy, recently retired guy, and he was an elite player. Don't get me wrong, but nobody ever called Carmelo Anthony the best of all time or anything like that. But Carmelo Anthony made 9-figure deals on just his sneakers. So the money there is still not at the top end where these guys want it to be. Maybe it is, and they're keeping all of it. But I present to you, it's not quite there yet. Not like the NBA. You still don't. I don't want to make little of the world's horrible situation and stuff, but you literally see Palestinians wearing Jordan and LeBron shirts. You may every once in a while see a UFC in there. It's not there. Those because what that means to me is a few things, right? Those shirts were purchased and then discarded by the public that bought them, and they wound up at thrift shops or being given away to people who need it. And you could go back to, you know, 20, 30 years and see Jordan shirts, being spread out among the poorest people. That's what people wear. It's like they wear Jordan stuff because it trickles down that far. So they're not making, like I said, they don't they may, if they make 300 million off of the Venom deal, LeBron would probably just by himself turn down a $300 million contract. You're talking about a roster of, 1,000 fighters. So the money's not there yet. And I think that they recognize that intrinsically. And that's where they want to take it. And so I think this combination allows them, a certain ability to project to being that way.
Now, before we close, I always like to give you a chance to kind of talk about the dog rescue you've been working on and the project there.
Well, Ashley's Wet Nose project here is it's daily work, just, feeding dogs and finding strays and stuff. It's the holiday season, and this is a decent country in terms of, there haven't been a lot of like rescues last couple of weeks and stuff like that. We've been maintaining. We got the horse still going on, where he's coming along real good. He's being active. He's actually interacting with other horses and things. And I get to go look at that every day as I walk over to the supermarket and stuff. So it's just that's what I do, to as a reward for the soul. It requires some support and help and stuff, but just like some of our podcasts and things like that, we're gonna keep doing it with or without. So whose side are you on? I think helping animals that need help is noble work. So I'm going out this way. I don't care.
Right. And this is something that, we want people's support because Miguel obviously is a huge part of this channel and of the MMA conspiracy hour. He's the backbone of the show, really. And so as always, we keep this project in the show notes so you can see where you can donate to this project. And if you want to support it, we'd appreciate it, obviously.
And
And
I'll put it to you this way: any support is we'd be super grateful and thankful for. But if this comes down to, man, go down to your local shelter and take some of those dogs out for a walk. If you can do that, I'm not asking for anything else, man. That would make me so happy because it's a holocaust for the animals out there. Even in the United States, they're hundreds of dogs being put to sleep because they don't have space anymore to keep them because people are abandoning them and things like that. This is in the United States. Forget about it on a worldwide level, because you could find animal shelters in Latin America and, Eastern Europe and things like that, hey, those people need money, every day to feed dogs, and dogs are being killed everywhere. And it's a shame, every little one of those dogs just wants to live, and it's instinctual, as an entity. And, they're not allowed to. It doesn't happen. And that's, more tragic than that the two richest people in MMA are Joe Rogan and Dana White. And that's a tragedy itself, too. Eh?
well, Miguel, as always, it's great to have your insight. And I was excited to do another episode. It's been a little while. And I think this one people really like because we kind of got to conspiracy a little bit. And
Yeah, we'll see. They're gonna announce it. But the thing is, Dana has a little bit of that Bob. Are we going to be looking at Dana running this thing when he's 90? I always thought that could be the way he goes out, because I don't see him retiring or doing anything like that. But Bob, really, the end is near. The end is near, and his contribution to boxing for the last 50 years and stuff has created the biggest library going on. And this option here being presented in the media really is the best option for it to continue at a high level. Because I don't, like I said, unless I'm missing, him having groomed somebody to take over and oversee it, that hasn't happened. He was a control freak. So how do you keep that going at the highest level? Sell the Endeavor. It makes sense.
Yeah, it's crazy how these guys like Bob Arum and Vince McMahon and I mean, why do you want to work till you're 80 or it's like you have enough money.
Yeah, no, and yeah, it's a question, but I think it also has to do with,
Nick Saban at Alabama, my favorite team. He's like 70, I don't know, 70, I want to say
and then you got to,
75 or something. He's
and
already won 7 national championships.
and out of all these people, probably the guy
Yeah,
with the most money that we've talked about on the podcast here is Cuban, and Cuban's looking to get
yeah,
out. Right? Cuban's going to walk away from basketball, really? So,
yeah.
yeah, it has to do with different personalities. I think with McMahon and Bob Arum and Dana also, I think that in their own minds, they can't conceive of somebody doing as good a job as they do. And I think it has to do with that slight bit of arrogance where it's like, there's nobody who can replace me. When that person becomes obvious, then, I'll move on and stuff like that. But how many times has Vince, moved in on his own family, backed off and given them a chance and come back in just in the WWE's comings and goings. And I think that comes with that type of personality where it's like, just I'm unique. There's nobody who can do what I do, and until somebody shows up that can carry my jock, I'm gonna keep doing this.
Their
And
legacy, they don't want it to
yeah,
go away.
yep, yep. And that's why I think the Dana thing, it makes sense, because Dana, that personality type, that's Dana to a T as well.
Most of us would be content to buy some hacienda somewhere and just live out the rest of our years, but not them.
Yeah, I'm content to sit here in Central America and rescue dogs and cats
Yeah,
and
I mean,
animals and stuff. I don't care. Um, It's time to, and it's time to walk away too. In some of their cases,
yeah.
Well, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I firmly am. You want to talk conspiracy? I believe this one is a buy. This is going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I agree with you. I think it is going to happen for the reasons we have mentioned. It Endeavor's not just going to buy this thing and say, "Oh yeah, you guys aren't have any pay-per-view stars. Okay, that's fine. Let's just let it die out." No, they're going to be on them. Hey, you need to fix this problem. We bought this thing. We didn't buy this thing so you guys could let it fold.
Yeah,
Get out there
yeah.
and fix this.
Again, it's going to be interesting because mergers are tough. You've got now another set of lawyers and legal offices and distribution people and things like that you're going to have to consolidate. And they're going to find the best practices. They're going to find the people that can continue moving forward into the future, that can make a deal. And I think what we're looking at here is, I think WWE tried it. I think in boxing it was tried maybe with the zone and things like that. And I think the UFC with Fight Pass has said, we're going to go with a 24/7 distribution channel. And it's come up a little lacking because they don't have a complete ability to keep people entertained. If it's Tuesday at 2 in the morning, do you watch the UFC's channel, or is there nothing on and they're just counting on you clicking on old episodes that you want to see? There should be a program there, whether it was, and this is where, could it have been Ariel Helwani's show? Could it have been this, whatever. They didn't go that way. They don't, but the three of this three-headed monster they're building could finally be that 24/7 all combat sports channel at a high level.
Right. Which would be pretty cool.
Hey, I'd
Yeah,
watch.
yeah, me too. All right. Well, Miguel, like I said, as always, it's always great to get your insight, and I think this one was a home run. This
Happy New Year,
particular
man.
topic.
Happy
Yeah,
New Year
happy
to
New
all our
Year,
fans out there. Thanks for
for sure.
everything. It's been a good 2023 in terms of picking up sponsors, and Todd, doing his thing and being consistent. And Todd also diversifying. My hat's off to him. I see him bringing on new people and doing interviews with an eclectic bunch of people. No huge names out there, but really keeping the grassroots stuff going. So, Todd, like I said, I'm a fan first, man. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Miguel. I can't say enough good about you. It's been great to do all these projects with you. I couldn't be more thankful. I appreciate it. And looking forward to next year. Happy
Yeah,
New
let's
Year
hope.
in Costa Rica.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. All right. Everybody who supports this channel, we appreciate it. Until next time, take care.